So we got the party started. We were there for the opening game of the tournament against the host Germany in a game that has now been dubbed the Munich Massacre. But I think every Scotland fan, every member of the Tartan Army would have been firmly having their vision fixed on the Switzerland game in match day 2 as the defining one of the group stages, the one that will probably make or break us for qualifying through to the next stage. And after the Munich Massacre, I think the Scotland team is quite clearly the worst team that we've seen at the Euros so far, which is really a horrible thing to say, thinking about how well we did in qualifying and all the positives that we were bringing into this tournament. But as you can see through all the other matches and all the other group stage games, every single team, no matter what the calibre of the player they've got in their squad, are given a real good fist of it, no matter what the opposition. So there's a huge gap here where the Scotland team need to climb, need to bridge from the Munich Massacre on Friday before we take on Switzerland this Wednesday. And in the video today, I'm going to be doing my best to predict what team Steve Clarke is going to line up, and as a kind of look at how do we actually get something out of this game? How can we beat the Swiss? What is the main plan of attack? What is our best route to go that we should be looking for at any point in the video? If you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And get into the comment section and let me know, what do you think Scotland's chances against Switzerland are? Can we get all 3 points, or is this a case of try and get a point out of it and then just put it all on the last game against Hungary? And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. Now, in terms of trying to name the Scotland team that's going to go out and play Switzerland, I think this is probably the best place to start with the video. There's only a few names that are nailed on for me, and that is Tierney and Robertson because of their obvious quality, as well as Gunn, the goalkeeper. Now, I know Gunn maybe lost a few fans from the Tartan Army over the game against Germany, but really, Germany had 2.3 XG, we conceded 5. Yeah, there's maybe a wee bit of goalkeeping that could have been a little bit better, but really in the grand scheme of things, I don't think the big man was that bad. And I wouldn't be throwing the baby out with the bathwater here defensively, because defensively it's probably the biggest question mark we've got coming into the game, because alongside Robbo and Tierney, we also have Jack Hendry, who I think will probably retain his place in the starting 11, although we probably won't see him in the central role. We might see him move out on the right-hand side here, depending on who's going to come in and fill that third centre-back role for us, because I do think that Anthony Ralston is probably going to hold his position on at right-back in this one. I don't think McCrory, from what little I've seen of him, is the guy we want to call upon here, because we'll come and look at how Switzerland will line up in a second. But I do feel that a real trick that we missed against Germany is the defence that we've got in trying to use Tierney and Robertson down the left-hand side when the opportunity presents itself, which it never really did on Friday night. And as a result, I think we want a right-back in here. And if you've seen my preview of the Germany game, I was talking about playing Porteous in this sort of position here so that we can just kind of crunch the rest of the back 3 together to make a kind of back 4 and let Tierney and Robertson get on. And I really do think that the last centre-back choice here will be quite pivotal for the game in terms of not only how we set up, but the kind of attitude, the frame of mind of Steve Clarke and really the rest of the squad coming into it. Now, I think in the middle here, it's probably a job for Grant Hanley. I know McKenna did come off the bench and kind of set up the OG, and I know a lot of people in Scotland are big fans of McKenna, and yeah, he is pretty solid, and I'm not saying anything bad against him or anything like that, but being middle of a back 3, Hanley's got a bit more experience in doing that, particularly at this level, and although he's not everyone's cup of tea, alongside Hendry, you've got 2 real centre-backs there, which when it was Hendry and Porteous, you don't really have that kind of dynamic going on there. And I do feel that Switzerland will be lined up quite similar to Germany in terms of one up front that will be causing some havoc. Then with some wide players we need to worry about. Having 2 guys that can be the big centre-back, and I know McKenna would offer this as well, but I just think Hanley and Hendry, you get a wee bit more elite top-end experience, which McKenna has some, but I think Hanley with his stints in the Premier League in the top end of the Championship or whatever, I don't think that really anyone in the Switzerland team is going to be, phasing him. And I do think that a big part of Scotland's problem against Germany was being a bit starstruck. So I don't think this is going to be something that with this defence we would really need to worry about as much. But what I really need us to see us doing is take some gambles, is take some risks. We know Robbo is going to be flying up and down the left wing here, but can we help Tierney get close to him and help him on this side here by creating a kind of lopsided back 4? when we're in possession and we're building up play. So that's why I think Ralston, Hendry and Hanley are probably the best way to go. Now, I could quite easily see Hanley coming out for McKenna. I do think that's a bit of a 50-50. And even as I'm going through this with you guys now, McKenna would make a lot more sense being that left-footed centre-back on this side of the pitch if that's how we're going to try and attack and open up the game from defence. So I actually think McKenna, it depends how he is in training, and it depends on, the manager who knows these players a lot better, whose personal preference here. But if we are thinking about getting on the front foot and trying to get Tierney a bit higher up to support Robbo, I think McKenna could be a great activator to make that happen. But I don't think we're going to be that ambitious, to be quite honest with you, which is why I do personally think it will be Hanley. But I think McKenna actually might be a great shout for giving us that kind of outlet to move out onto this side here. Because what's most important from the defence coming into this game is the ability for one of them just to step in and try and snuff out a passing lane, try and, catch a man running from midfield and let the other player, Hendry in this case, or maybe even Tierney, depending on the side of the pitch, stay with the runner, stay with the man, as it were. So I think, Hanley's maybe a little bit better suited to just that stopper position, just come out, get in someone's face, take them down if you need to, and just make sure nothing kind of gets anywhere near the edge of our box, because Switzerland will try and take shots from the edge of the box just like Germany did, and also Germany were quite effective with that. So I think for the most part the defence does pick itself. I will be interested to see the Hanley-McKenna dynamic there. And I'll be pretty excited if McKenna does start, but I think it's going to be Hanley for this kind of step-up element that he can kind of give, as well as Hendry. Now, McGinn is going to be the first name on the team sheet when it comes to midfield, and I really do hope that we get a little bit of a change back to the kind of box midfield that we've seen Scotland do better with in qualifying versus that kind of T-shaped thing that we had going on against Germany. Because McGinn, we want him to be further forward. We want to be him close to whoever is going to be playing up front. And, the problem with McGinn, I think, is that in the Germany game, he wasn't really on the left. That was much more Christie's thing. But I think if we have McGinn over here on the left-hand side, next to the overlapping Robbo or obvious kind of artillery that we've got on this side of the pitch here, we're just putting our best players in the best position possible to do the best that they possibly can. So I'd like to see McGinn actually on the left-hand side of midfield. And I don't think Callum McGregor is going to lose his position in the team. He's obviously a really experienced, a really senior player in the squad. And overall for Scotland, he's been a really effective player in this shape, in this system. And I think he will retain his place. But the problem we've seen with McGregor is he is not a defensive midfielder. He's not great at recovery, running and defending, that kind of thing. And, really, because he is going to be floating around and on the left, on the right, filling into spaces and everything else. I think, coming out of the Germany game, the main thing that we need, we don't have, and if you look at every other team in the Euros, no matter what system they play, you need that central kind of anchor player that can allow your other midfielders to play off of and, move into spaces, counter-attack, press forward if you can. And I think that means we would probably need to bring Billy Gilmour in to start alongside McGregor, not instead of, because Gilmour will be really good and is really good at holding this kind of centre line of the pitch here and dividing left to right, allowing McGregor to kind of roll offside of him and go and press anything that's running. But again, like we've seen in the positive sense from McGregor, his best actions for Scotland is when he can press up a little bit higher, get into the faces of some defensive mids, maybe even push the likes of McGinn onto the back line, onto defence, etc. And he doesn't have that ability, he doesn't have that freedom if he's the only man in the engine room here. So I think Gilmour and McGregor is probably the midfield I would be going with, and I think is the most likely to play with. But I would emphasise, I would want McGinn on this side of the pitch here, where we're going to have Robbo and hopefully Tierney joining them. And I think, again, McSauce, Scott McTominay is probably undroppable in this team. And although stylistically, profile-wise, I think he's probably better suited to being this anchor player and maybe letting McGregor, and you could take Gilmour out for Christie now, and you could probably have a better balance in terms of going forward and whatnot. McTominay has been so effective in the final third for us that it would be negligent not to put him in and around these positions here. And I think having McGinn, McGregor, Gilmour all kind of working the build-up play, allowing McTominay that little bit of freedom to be detached from the defence like he was against Germany is very much needed, because when we are going to turn the ball over and look to hit and break, he's probably one of the best target men kind of options we've got for taking the ball in, making the right pass at the right time, and, playing his teammates in, as well as putting his head in where it hurts and arriving at the right time late in the box perhaps as well. And if the ball is coming down the left-hand side here, it should make it a little bit easier for him to maybe try and get in and penetrate the box. Maybe if Ralston is coming up, he can do something over here as well. But I really do think whoever is on the right hand side should be quite conservative and allow us to double up on the left a bit more. than anything else. And that brings us to probably the biggest question mark, the biggest headache of, this game is who do we play up front? Because as much as the defensive centre-back thing is a really important question to see how we're going to try and shape out and build out from the back, how are we going to actually use Robbo and Tierney, and how we're going to get into midfield, etc. Like the striker is the arrowhead, is the focal point here. And without Lyndon Dykes' energy and physical presence, we don't really have one striker that is a perfect fit, a perfect replacement for him. Che Adams was an absolutely empty jersey in the first game against Germany. And if he isn't totally fit, which he didn't look, he obviously gets subbed off at half time, then I wouldn't want to see him starting this game. But if he was just having a bad game, got a bad rough of the green, maybe there's some sort of extenuating circumstances why he wasn't full of energy, why he wasn't pressing the defence, why was he actually just pressing like Kroos and Andrik, then I don't mind Adams coming back into the start. But I would probably just about opt to bring Lewis Shankland into the starting 11 for this one. And I know this, might have somebody spitting your tea out or whatever, but there's not really that great abundance of choice here. But when we look at the Switzerland team in a second, 3 big imposing centre-backs. We need someone that's just going to stay up there with them and has that ability to, maybe hold the ball in for 2 seconds to play the overlap and run. And really what it comes down to for me is we need someone that has that sniff of danger, has that sniff of goal. And if we create one opportunity, if we create 2, it doesn't matter, but it's not going to be that many. No matter how little opportunities we create, it's a guy that hey, if you give him a shot on target from inside the 18-yard box, there's a very good chance that he's going to put it in the back of the net. So I think having McTominay and McGinn up and amongst them as well here, I think Shankland would be who I would go for. But what I'm kind of tossing and turning about on this one is Lewis Morgan. Now, Lewis Morgan never really played up front for Celtic, I think, once or twice, but never really seen him as a striker. And in America, he's had predominantly wing play, but he's been used more and more as like a central forward who will play off somebody else and try and run into, maybe he'll run down the right-hand channel if the ball's down here. Maybe he'll peel off and run down the left-hand channel if something's going on here. And what he might allow us to do, because he is very high energy, he's not going to pull his punches, he's a guy that really does pour it all out there on the pitch, is he would do what I think we're all expecting Che Adams to do. But if he's the one that gets played on the counter-attack, because they do have 3 centre-backs, so let's just draw them on pitch here. If we are really, really deep and we're looking to, clear the lines, play it long into a channel, and then, like we always do, trying within a couple of passes, try and get a shot away, then Morgan is a great player to be feeding in down these outside channels, round the back 3, maybe through it, depending on the opportunity and that kind of thing. He's definitely got a wee bit of direct to goal running in him for sure. But he's a guy that, like if you were going to zing it down the left or zing it down the right for him, he's a guy that will get to this zone here. And if McTominay and McGinn are not too far away in support, maybe even Robbo creeping in at the back post here, he's a very good guy to have in these spaces 1v1 and try and put a ball in for somebody else. This is maybe a move, this is maybe a style of play I could see us adopting later on in the game, because coming from the bench, that energy from him will just be felt a lot more. So I'm kind of in 2 minds. In this same kind of way, I did say there might have been an argument in the aftermath of the Germany game for starting Christie in this kind of role, but I don't think Christie quite has that next level of pace that some people think Adams has got. Morgan is almost there with James Forrest used to have, and really you need to help you get up the pitch. If you've not got a Lyndon Dykes or you're not going to play Shankland, you're then looking for space to run into. And I think Morgan, he's been brought into the squad. Why not use him, But again, this might be a super sub element. Because if the Swiss are to line up fairly similar to the way they did against Hungary, I think Mbolo has got a good chance of starting this game ahead of Dua, or their lad that started. But their main attacking threat is also all the way down the left. Ricardo Rodriguez, the ball playing left back, comes centre back, and Doy, the Bologna guy, who's been absolutely frightening this year, very effective. And then Vargas on this side of the pitch here. This is really where a lot of their main attacking threat is. Now, I know Abisher and Vidmar did very, very good in the first game, so they're not a one-sided team, let's say, but they're going to be focusing really down our weakest side possible at every opportunity. As I say, it's these spaces. Maybe you fancy Morgan to kind of play in some of these pockets here, but again, equally, like with them only having 2 in midfield, and Mbolo being the only man to really try and occupy, who'll try to be run channels and bouncing off Hendry and Hanley or McKenna or whoever, Vargas and Abisher here moving in between the different pockets and playing. This is going to be about keeping the game tight like we did against Germany, but we need that anchor player in here to make sure that these passing lanes are really cut off and are much harder to kind of make us play through. But we do need that ability to spring into action and actually go and attack the opposition as well. So this is going to be a real man-for-man thing, I do feel, right across the pitch. We're going to go trying to go down the left. They're going to keep going and trying to go down the left. And between Sommer and Gunn, if it is going to be a case of a goalkeeper fight, if it's going to be all of us down the left, get some shots and crosses, and then it's going to be all Switzerland down the left, shots and crosses, I do think Sommer's going to catch more than he lets in versus Gunn. So I don't think we want it to become an absolute fist fight here, but I do see a lot of areas of the pitch that's becoming a bit of a man-for-man endeavour, and it is going to be about who's got the football IQ switched on, who's got the better game plan, and who really wants it more at the end of the day, because Switzerland will be coming into this game with a bit more confidence, and having seen us losing to Germany 5-1, I think for a lot of these games where you do see like Italy, Albania, or even Ukraine, Romania, you know, as I was watching that one earlier, if there's one team that's like favoured, so many of them have been in second gear and been caught cold so far in this tournament. So we might be able to catch Switzerland in that kind of frame of mind, depending on how they prepare for the game and individual players, for them, how they kind of see their chances against Scotland and how they rate our first performance, certainly. But I do think this is going to be one of those games where it is going to come down to the smallest differences. And really, the team selection and the tactics really need to grow up from the last game. And this could be a really good match for us because, like Switzerland, we're definitely not expected to beat them, but we're definitely going to give them more possession than we're likely to have. And that kind of plays into our hands if they do want to have their back three with Xhaka and Fuller here trying to build up the play and then looking at counter-attack. If we've got a striker that can just stay on the busy end of the defence, and then really not too far away from that, you've got the likes of McGinn, McTominay, and then if McGregor can be allowed to jump up into this position here, you know, we could really get into their faces and really cause some big problems for them really quickly in the match. And again, like we've seen so often at the Euros here, when it is two teams really going at it, it's all about who takes the initiative, who tries to win the game, who goes and tries to cut the other team open, and ultimately who does get the breakthrough and take control of the game. Because from here, it is then going to be a diminishing return from both teams. International football is all about starting your best team really from the word go, and then using your subs to either relieve pressure and minute share, minute management with the rest of your squad, or, you know, if you're chasing the game, maybe they're different, but they're not better necessarily than who started the game. So you can bring Shankland off for a Morgan or an Adams or something like that later and inject a little bit more pace into the match. But yeah, there needs to be a bit more bravery from defence to cut off passing lanes, to get close to their men. And really, like, if we are going to be dropping deep whenever we lose the ball, I don't mind that too much, because this guy does have a lot of pace and power, as does Vargas and Doy. These guys are rapid when they get going, so I don't mind that. But with Gilmore coming in here now alongside McGregor, I fancy him to be a better anchor, just to keep the defence having a little shield in front of them, so that ball into the front players isn't going to be as easy. You know, there's somebody in there that's just making it a bit harder for those passes to come through, which McGregor can do as well, but McGregor's prone to following the ball and following the play and vacating position, which is, I think, what he's told to do anyway. This is going to be a huge game for McTominay and McGinn, because those two guys are looked at firmly as being the guys that are going to get it done for us. It's not Shankland, it's not Morgan, it's not Adams. We are looking at those two in particular, like, can you go and win us the game? Can you go on and do the thing? Robbo comes into that conversation, of course, we all know that. But particularly when I'm thinking about the attacking department, you know, these are the guys we're looking at more. So can we get Shankland to give them the space to break into it and play off of? Or will the manager go for somebody like Morgan or Adams and try and use their pace to get us into space, to get us up the pitch for these guys to then crash into the box for any deliveries that might come thereafter? So it will be an interesting one. I do think Scotland can win this game, but it is going to be about scoring the first goal, and it is going to be about having the lines between defence and midfield not narrower, because they were quite narrow anyway against Germany, but it's keeping them occupied, you know, so that if anyone is floating into that area, if the boy Vargas decides to move on to this side of the pitch here to try and double up, that we're switched on to what's happening, and we've got the wherewithal to make sure that we're covering in spaces and we're not allowing them to double up and get an extra man somewhere, and then before you know it, there's a 3-man in the middle of the picture that can, you know, take his pick of passes or shots or anything like that. So I think the first goal is going to be crucial. I do think we can get the win. I don't think it will be a high scoring game if we are to get the win. Switzerland did score 3 against Hungary, and really, if we were to capitulate, I wouldn't rule that out. Switzerland are a quality team, but I do think that Steve Clarke and the boys have, you know, seen the reaction, seen the analysis from the Munich massacre, and I think there'll be a lot of lessons learned. And the quality of player that we do have for 7-8 positions on the pitch here, I think will show itself in this game against Switzerland, and I do think we can win. I'm going to go for Scotland to win this game by 2-1. Maybe there's a penalty, maybe there's a set piece involved, like a corner or a direct free kick. But open play, I could see us getting a goal. And then I think, yeah, some sort of dead ball situation might go for us. Wherever you're watching the game, stay out of trouble. I hope you have a good time. Good luck, Scotland, and let's go and get the 3 points. On screen and now is some other stuff that I've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this, and I'll catch you on the next one.